I just want to make a video about putting Minuet I hands together from Partita in B flat by J.S. Bach, BWV 825. Okay, I've mentioned in the hand separate video, so if you've watched them, you've already heard me say this, but the minuet is in 2-bar sections, but there was a repeated step that had a 2-bar floor plan. And Bach would often write his minuets doing 2 bars and 2 bars plus 4 bars. His minuets weren't designed to actually be danced to. They were designed so that when you listen to them, you think, oh, I'm hearing a minuet. So his piece falls really nicely into 2 bars plus 2 bars and then 4 bars for the sections. So first section to practice would be this one. Now you notice I did my left hand articulation. When you're doing hands together, you can start with connected so that you make sure your fingering is correct. And then once that's good, then try and do your long, short, short. Make sure your long, short, short doesn't disrupt your right hand. So that's the first 2-bar section. Second section. Oh, I'm doing the wrong fingering because I'm trying to do it in sections. Yeah, funny, isn't it? And so that's the second section to put hands together, and the third section, bar 5 to 8. End of that section. Then bar 9 to 10. Oh, it's the same as the beginning. So actually you don't need to practice that line because you've already practiced it. So then bar 13 to the first time bar. Now remember what I said about the first time bar. You always, because of the fast notes, we're going to add the first note of the repeat like this. And there's our first note of the repeat, particularly because they're fast notes. And I just know from teaching that's the point that students will try and add an extra pause if they haven't practiced it away. I was going to say something else, but I thought it might come back to me. Okay, then section 2, so then starting from bar 18, and this is a 2-bar section. That's that section. And then the next section would be bar 20, 21. And then 22, 23. Actually, this would be a 4-bar section, and it finishes with the fast notes, so we're going to add the first note of 26 as well. I slipped off the E flat, you might have noticed there, but that gives you the idea. What I was going to say is about the dynamics. If you've got dynamics in your score, ignore them completely. Bach did not put any dynamics on, and as I said in the right-hand video, Baroque dynamics depended on articulation, not on actual using of dynamics. So we create our interest without worrying about those dynamic markings. So just ignore them at the moment. So it's our lovely 2-bar section, bar 26, 27, and then our next section is 28, 29. And then the next section is 30, 31. And then 32, 33. Be really careful of the fingering in that bar because your thumb wants to be ready for bar 33. And there's your D, which you can do in the right hand or left hand, but the left hand, if you do it in there, does give you a bit more time to get to the high note. Oops. And then for bar 38, 39, remember, because we've got the same thing, we've got that fast section, we're going to add in the first note of bar 18. Now that section, I'll do that bar 39 really slowly because it's quite complicated. So you might find you need to do that 10 times just to get that happening under your hand. And remember, the right hand needs to be light because they're semiquavers. I'll just add one more thing to think about, which I don't think I mentioned in the other ones, but when we're practicing this, really aim, particularly in the right hand, for a consistency of volume. Imagine that you're playing a harpsichord and every note pretty much plays the same volume. That's not strictly true, but for all intents and purposes, it is true. That you want to make your right hand playing as flat as possible to start with, so that you want to be completely in control. You don't want that thumb to be banging notes because it's out of control, particularly if you're trying to use your wrist to operate your thumb, then you will have an out of control sound every time you use your thumb. So we're really aiming for, as our starting place, that everything is flat and the only difference is articulation. Once you've got that control, then you can start to think, well, okay, I'm playing a piano. Maybe I want to do something with my dynamics a little bit, so I still stay within Baroque style, but I'm taking advantage of the fact that I am using a piano, which was an instrument that for most of Bach's life he had very little respect for. Apparently he suggested some corrections to it, which were taken on by the piano manufacturers. So he clearly wasn't anti-piano, but it was just still a developing instrument in his day that hadn't yet reached any kind of perfection, if an instrument can reach perfection. So we're still dealing with instruments that have very controlled dynamic levels. They're used in controlled spaces, not concert halls, so rooms, maybe we're having dinner and there's some background music, and that's what the music's being used for. So it's not going to be dominating, it's not going to be emotionally intense as far as dynamic levels go. So think about that when you're practicing. Aim for this perfect flatness. Once you've got your perfect flatness of tone, then you can start to think, how do I use my articulation dynamics to create interest? Okay, have fun learning the hands together.